Burwood, welcome to Reed, or as the Prime Minister likes to welcome constituents around here, ni hao. Friends, I'd like to start by inviting Auntie Donna Ingram to the stage to deliver a welcome to country.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to be here with permission from my elders and on behalf of the Tribal Warrior Association to welcome you to the Federal Election Volunteer Rally. It gives me pride to represent my community in this important cultural protocol. It shows respect for and recognition to the unique position of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australian culture and history. We are gathered on the traditional land of the Wongal, who are one of 29 clans of the Eora Nation, which is bordered by the Hawkesbury, the Georges and the Nepean rivers. I'm an Aboriginal woman who proudly identifies with the Wiradjuri Nation, along with my cousin Linda Burney, through our family connections from a town called Cowra in central West New South Wales. I was born on Eora country and I've had the privilege to live, work and raise my 4 children on this land for most of my life. My family has grown and I'm now a proud grandmother to Aaliyah, Elijah, Kalila and Lakota. My wish for my grandchildren is that they grow up happy and healthy in a society that offers them equal opportunities in life, which is what everyone wants for their children and their grandchildren. I'd like to acknowledge the Wongal, their spirits and ancestors who will always remain with the land, Mother Earth, and thank them for their ongoing custodianship and for allowing us to gather on their land for today's rally. I'm also very proud to be part of the oldest living culture in the world, the Aboriginal culture of Australia, with our unique and distinct heritage, cultures and identities. I pay my respects to our elders, both past and present, and we must never forget the sacrifices made by our leaders to create a better future for Aboriginal people. I do this as a reminder and as a tribute to elders and those who have gone before us to fight for land rights, justice and equity for our communities. I extend my respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from all clans and nations who are present this morning. I also recognise our non-Aboriginal sisters and brothers who walk beside us to make Australia a great place to live. I now offer you a warm and sincere welcome to the land of the Wongal of the Eora Nation and wish you a safe stay on the land and safe travel from the land. On behalf of the Tribal Warrior Association and the Wongal, I wish you a successful day and congratulate all the volunteers, the backbone of the campaign, who have signed up to support Bill Shorten and help this grassroots campaign to contribute to a fair go for Australia. In closing, we remember that this is, was and always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you, everyone.
Over the last 400 or so days of campaigning, I've had some time to reflect on just how centrally important each and every single one of you are to the election campaign. From the stations in the morning, to the door knocks in the afternoon, to the phone calls at night. If we're going to win this seat, if we're going to win this election, it will only be as a result of your hard work. You are the lifeblood of our great party, and I want to thank you all from the absolute bottom of my heart.
authorised by N. Carroll, Australian Labor Party, Canberra.
Friends, it's a privilege to invite and to welcome Tanya Plibersek here today, not just because she's the next Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, though she is, but because, for me, she has the most important job in this next government, that of Education Minister of Australia. You see, when I was 7 or 8, I was a lot like every other kid. I loved Peter Sterling, I loved Transformers, I loved G.I. Joes, but I was different in one particular way. By the age of 8, I was functionally illiterate. Couldn't read a lick. Now, my teachers told my parents that I was a nice kid, just, a little bit slow. They weren't the first and they won't be the last ones to make that observation. But my mum refused to believe them. She thought that nothing could be wrong with any of her 3 little darlings, so she went and took me tested. And I got tested again and again and again. And it turned out on the 3rd try, it turned out that I was dyslexic. Now, my mum is the hero of this story. You see, she fought me to get me to go to tutoring each afternoon, and then she fought me to do the homework that the tutors set. It was my mum that drove me this whole way, and I've done okay for myself since. I've been to university, I've written a book, I've run a think tank, and now I'm running for Parliament, but my entire future to this point, and my entire future from this point, all hinged on not just that diagnosis, but that early intervention, that early care that I was lucky enough to get. And the truth is, I was lucky. I had a great mum. I have a great mum. Hi, Mum. But I was also fortunate enough to have a family who could provide that early care, who could pay for that tutoring and that coaching. And friends, we all know that there are tens of thousands of students out there every single day who are not getting that care, who are not getting that attention. And so when we talk about these big figures of $14 billion of education funding, when we say that this electorate, Reid, is getting 14 million of those dollars spent here, that's real. That's real for the principals, that's real for the teachers, and you'd better believe that's real for the students and their families. Friends, would you please join with me in welcoming the next Deputy Prime Minister and Education Minister of Australia, Tanya Plibersek.
Well, thank you everyone for that very kind welcome, and thanks especially to Sam Crosby. You're a fantastic candidate and I know that you are going to be a wonderful member for Reid. I'd like to thank Auntie Donna for her welcome to country, and I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the land of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to elders from around Australia. I'd also like to acknowledge current and former federal colleagues, current and former state members, union leaders and our fantastic candidates. And importantly, most importantly, all of you rank and file members. I'd also like to thank Southern Cross Vocational College for hosting us today. Because friends, this is it. The starting gun's fired and we are ready to go. It's been 2,045 long days in opposition. And there are just 34 days left before Australia makes a very important decision for our future. I'm so proud to be here with you today. Over the last 6 years, Bill and our team have been to every corner of this country We've met first-time parents in regional Victoria, cancer patients in Brisbane, tradies in Western Sydney and teachers in Perth. And we've spent every single day in opposition talking to people. And more importantly, listening. Our stable and united Labor team has the most comprehensive and progressive policy agenda of any opposition in living memory. Today I'm here to ask you, every single one of you, for the next 34 days, are you with us? Because we know that we can't do it without you. From Page to Perth, Banks to Braddon, it's you, our volunteers, our branch members, the true believers in the Labor cause, who get us over the line. You are the ones who knock on the doors, you hit the phones, you hand out how to votes, you talk to your friends and neighbours. You will make the difference between another divided and dysfunctional Liberal government or a Bill Shorten Labor government committed to fairness. The Liberal government have shown us politics at its worst. 3 Prime Ministers, 3 Treasurers, countless ministers come and gone, and no vision for a fairer Australia. Nothing to lift wages, nothing to bring down power prices, nothing to lower pollution, and nothing to make the economy work for working Australians. And their flimsy budget surplus forecast is built on the back of underspending on Labor's National Disability Insurance Scheme. Well, that tells you all you really need to know about this government. We knew this campaign would get dirty, but we didn't think it would happen so fast. Just this week, we saw that pea-hearted Peter Dutton attacking Labor's candidate for Dixon. And the dial on the scare campaign has already been turned up to 11 by the Liberals. Exclusive Treasury modelling shows Bill Shorten hates puppies. But seriously, on cars, on climate, on costings, what we are getting from the Liberals is lie after lie after lie. Labor doesn't need a campaign of lies about the Liberals because the truth is scary enough. Just look at the cuts and the chaos over the last 6 years. Climate chaos, cuts to hospitals, cuts to schools, unis and TAFE, cuts to disability services, cuts to the ABC, and debt doubled under their watch. Labor is the party of reform. It's who we are. We have never walked past injustice, shrugged our shoulders and said, nothing to see here. We know when we fight for the fair go, everyone wins. For 6 years, Australians have been shortchanged by a government that delivers for the top end, but not for ordinary Australians. A Shorten Labor government will build a strong economy that works for everyone. We'll do it by working with employers and unions to create good jobs with decent wages and conditions. Jobs that let you plan for the future, raise a family, buy a home, mind you, maybe not your 7th investment property. A home where you can build the kind of life that my parents dreamt of when they came here looking for a better future for their children. A Shorten Labor government will stand up for working people. Under the Liberals, wages have been stagnant for too long. Australians deserve a pay rise. We'll restore penalty rates and we'll make sure that the minimum wage is a living wage. And we'll rebuild our health system after years of Abbott, Turnbull, Morrison cuts. So when you're sick, what matters is your Medicare card, not your credit card. More than that, we'll invest $2.3 billion in Medicare to cover the costs of cancer treatments. We'll invest in universal access to preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds so that Australian kids get 15 years of world-class schooling and great TAFE and unis after that. And we'll always back our public schools and public TAFE, because for parents to have real choice, we need to make sure that the public school down the road gives kids the same opportunity as the richest school on Sydney Harbour. We'll protect our precious environment and will lower pollution and power prices by driving investment in renewables. And we really can't have a fair go in this country while our First Nations people don't get a fair go. So we'll work harder to close the gap, and we'll respect the request of First Nations people in the Uluru Statement from the Heart for an Indigenous voice to Parliament. And we'll do all of that while having equal representation of men and women in our Labor caucus. I want all of you to feel as proud as I do of what we've achieved together. So we're going to watch a short video.
We can do better than this. The people of Australia deserve better than this, and a Labor government will deliver better than this. I'm here to outline Labor's plan to bring the fair go back into the heart of our nation. A plan to properly fund health and education, a plan to boost your wages. It's a plan that will work because Australia thrives when middle and working class Australians can get ahead. Tonight is about a fair go for everyone who wants the best for their kids and their future. A fair go for every part of our nation, from bush to coast, from growing cities and suburbs right throughout the country. A fair go for the real forgotten people, working families, pensioners and Australians doing it tough. For more than 120 years, we have been the party of higher wages for workers. We have a real wages policy. And we will lead a new push to deliver genuine pay equity for Australia's working women. Young Australians always get a dud deal from the Conservative government. If I'm elected Prime Minister, I'll make it my mission to ensure every Australian child gets the life-changing opportunity of a properly funded quality education. Here is what the fair go means under a Labor government. Rescuing hospitals and reinvesting in Medicare. Proper funding for schools, TAFE and university. This nation needs a leader that gets it. It needs a party with a plan for the future, and it needs a government that will deliver a fair go for all Australians. That is what we deliver. That is our promise.
Authorised by N. Carroll, Australian Labor Party, Canberra.
It's actually a pretty cool video, isn't it? What you saw from those volunteers on the screen there was energy, dedication, optimism and discipline. And that's what you'll get from Bill, from me and from our team. Under Bill's leadership, we are united. We are disciplined. We take nothing for granted. And we are bold. Bill is leading on tax reform, on industrial relations, putting the fight for fairness and equality front and centre. Bill Shorten out-campaigned Tony Abbott every time. Malcolm Turnbull, every time. And now, Scott Morrison, every time. It was Bill Shorten who stuck to his guns on climate change and renewables as the government lurched between 13 different policies. It was Bill Shorten who prioritised health and education over tax cuts for multinationals and millionaires, who stood up for marriage equality. And it was Bill who embraced the Uluru Statement from the heart. The Liberals criticised Bill for his past as a union leader. Well, I tell you what, I will take a union leader over a failed ad man every time. Because there's no better qualification for being Prime Minister than a lifetime of standing up for working Australians. Bill's focused on the future. He's focused on the people who need a Labor government. He's led a stable and united team for 6 years, and he's done it with energy, intelligence and good humour. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next Prime Minister of Australia, Bill Shorten, and the wonderful Chloe Shorten.
Well, thank you, Tanya, Plibersek. For 6 years, I've been so fortunate, so very fortunate to count you as a friend, to have you standing alongside me as Deputy Leader. So I know, I think better than almost anyone, just how lucky Australia will be to have Tanya Plibersek as Deputy Prime Minister of this country. I wish to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet. I pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging. And in our party, in the government that I hope to lead, those words of respect are also a promise for action, to close the gap in health and housing, in jobs and justice, to support the work of truth-telling and treaties, and to enshrine a voice for our first Australians in the nation's birth certificate, our Constitution. Friends, at this upcoming election, Labor's message to the people of Australia is very straightforward. You deserve better than you've been getting from government in the last 6 years. You deserve better than cuts to schools and hospitals. You deserve better than ever-rising energy bills and increasing childcare costs. You deserve better than insecure work and stagnant wages growth. You deserve better than a tax system which deepens inequality and entrenches intergenerational unfairness against Australian young people. You deserve better than delay and division and dysfunction and denial on climate change. You deserve better than a government that is afraid of the future, obsessed and consumed with itself. I say to the Australian people, you deserve better than the last 6 years. Australia deserves better than the last 6 years. The next generation deserves better than the last 6 years. And after 6 years of cuts, of chaos, of division, friends, it is time for change. It is time, friends, for a stable, united Labor government. And I have to say that when I call my team a stable and united political organisation, I am so pleased to have so many of them here today. I have got the best team running in this election, without doubt. You know, and we've seen over the last 6 years, that they are an outstanding group of passionate and idealistic men and women. They're talented, they're diverse, they're clever and they're hardworking, and they are committed every morning to every night to make their communities and our country a better place. And nearly 6 years ago now, all of us in Labor, the parliamentary party, the rank and file members, the unions, we made a choice as a movement. We decided to rip up the rule book of opposition. We decided that we couldn't just sit back and wait for the other side to trip over their own shoelaces. We couldn't have imagined some of the mistakes they've made, in fact. We decided and said that Australian politics has to be a better destination. It should be the contest of ideas. We decided we would set the pace. We would make the running. We would put forward our vision for the future. Because unlike our opponents, we do not seek government for the titles and the trappings, for the chance to do special favours to powerful mates. Labor seeks government to do the big things, to manage the big changes, to build for the future, to be ambitious for Australia, to write Australia large. In our movement, we believe in striving for the best, because we believe the Australian people deserve the best. We are a big thinking party with big ideas, and we believe that Australia should have the best in education and training and apprenticeships and universities. We believe that we should be the best we can be in good jobs and fair wages, the best in clean energy technology and advanced manufacturing, the best in infrastructure from our cities to our suburbs to our regions. We should be the best we can be in achieving equality for women in pay, in leadership, in freedom from family violence. We believe Australia should be the best in aged care, helping look after people living with dementia. We believe that we should provide the best support for people with disability and their carers, and we believe in the best healthcare and the best hospitals in the world. And that really is the fundamental choice at this election. Better hospitals for Australians or bigger tax loopholes for the top end of town? And I submit the answer is clear. If we are elected, the next government of Australia, we will put back every single dollar that the Liberals have cut from public hospitals. Labor's plan for better hospitals spans out across the nation, but I'm pleased to say that our plan starts right down the road from here. Today I'm proud to announce that if we win the next election, a new Labor government will put in $50 million to kickstart phase 2 of the redevelopment of Concord Hospital. As Sam Crosby, our tireless candidate for Reid, and the candidate who's been in the competition for Reid the longest, keeps telling me, the main building at Concord was completed back in 1941. It's in desperate need of renovation. And across the nation, rundown facilities make life harder for our amazing nurses, orderlies and doctors. They make things worse for patients. Now, you don't need to be a brain surgeon to know this. However, it just so happens that our candidate in Bennelong is a brain surgeon. And Brian Aller is right behind this project because he knows that improving Concord Hospital will help patients all through the inner west. And this is what Labor's $2.8 billion Better Hospitals Fund will mean for communities right around Australia. It'll mean more beds, more staff, more equipment, shorter waiting times, better care. This is what Labor does best, prioritise the health of Australians. And friends, 10 days ago in my budget reply speech, I announced the most significant expansion of Medicare since Labor created it. A vote for Labor on May the 18th will see a $2.3 billion investment to virtually eliminate out-of-pocket costs for our fellow Australians battling cancer. Australians are currently, when they are in the fight of their lives, paying too much against cancer for their medical costs. There are hundreds of thousands of our fellow Australians, perhaps some even in this room, who are living with cancer, and their families too. Our plan will take the cost of treatment from thousands of dollars down to nearly nothing. Let me share with you what this difference means in the real world. On Monday in Brisbane, Catherine King, myself and Christina Keneally visited the Royal Brisbane Hospital. We were in the day oncology ward at the RBH. I met an amazing woman. Her name is Elaine. She's warm, friendly, an aura, a great sense of humour. You sort of wanted to pick her up and make her your neighbour at home. She's just a standout human being. Elaine was diagnosed with cancer in 2011. She's strong. She's tried it all, been right through the system. The therapies, the treatments. When the drugs weren't available on the PBS, they do the clinical trials to access them. So far, it hasn't worked. She's told me that as she held my hand in the ward, she's got one last roll of the dice. It's a new trial, a new drug. She looked me in the face, said there's perhaps a 10% chance. She wouldn't want me talking about that. What she said to me rocked me. She said, could I help her talk to her superannuation fund so she could withdraw her life savings to pay some of the out-of-pocket bills? Because this amazing woman, and there are hundreds of thousands of stories like her, her biggest worry wasn't herself. It's not the disease which is killing her. She was anxious about leaving a big debt for her family after she was gone. Now we have sorted it out, and I want to thank Industry Fund Host Plus for moving as well as they did on it. But is that who this country is? Do we have to, when you've got cancer, do you have to rely upon chance encounters so that you can empty your retirement savings to pay for your treatment? More to the point, should you have to dip into your super in the fight of your life, refinance your home in the fight of your life, or sell your home? Or do you just lie awake with the pain of cancer and the anxiety of death? Cancer makes you sick, but it should not make you poor, and that is what Labor's going to change. Cancer's scary. 1 in 2 Australians will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. 1 in 2. If that is not you, it is someone you love. If we are elected as the next government of Australia on May the 18th, we give this promise to everyone caught up in the battle against cancer. Your tests and scans and ultrasounds and MRIs will be covered by Medicare. Your appointments with specialists and oncologists, your chemo, your radiation therapy will be covered by Medicare. And the cancer medication that you need will be funded by the PBS. My view is simple and Labor's promise is straightforward. If you are in the fight of your life, if someone you love is in the fight of their life, it should not matter whether you live in the city or the bush. It should not matter your postcode or your personal wealth. Under Labor, there is only one thing that matters. There is only one thing you will need: your Medicare card. Now, there was a lot wrong with the government's budget a couple of weeks ago, but there always is. But this year, one thing in particular stood out. This government shouldn't surprise me, but they even managed to surprise me with new thinking of practising meanness at a legislative level. Shortchanging the National Disability Insurance Scheme to prop up a flimsy surplus forecast. Even I didn't think they could think of that. I mean, you've got to hand it to them. The Liberals and the Nationals have created bottlenecks in the NDIS. They've delayed the funding agreements with the states to roll out the National Disability Insurance Scheme. They've prevented vital support getting to the people who need it most. They've done these things. And then having congested the flow of valuable and legitimate resources to people who deserve it, having created failure in the system, they then bank the failure and neglect as budget success. For many of our fellow Australians, the $1.6 billion underspend in the NDIS is not just a figure in the budget tables. What it meant is that 77,000 people living with disability, severe and profound disability, and their families are going without the support they are entitled to. I mean, even the people who have access to their NDIS plan are, on average, using only 50% of it. Not because there is an under-demand for the services, as the government would have you believe, but because the services aren't there to support them and are taking too long to be processed to get to the people who deserve them. Friends, the National Disability Insurance Scheme is too big. It's too important to be hostage to dodgy government accounting. All of us know someone waiting for the National Disability Insurance Scheme to live up to its promise. And friends, I can promise that a Labor government will make it our mission to get the NDIS back on track as it should be. Now, we'll start getting it back on track by removing the staffing cap on the National Disability Insurance Agency. Having more people there to help, with more resources going to where they're needed. In addition, we are going to pay the upfront fees for 20,000 TAFE places to people who want to train as the carers of the future. And today I can announce that we will invest a further $40 million into new training programs for carers, scholarships and support and skills that people can draw upon wherever they are in Australia. Because not only do we owe a lot of gratitude to our carers, but we're going to need more carers to deliver the NDIS, and we want those carers to be well trained and well paid, delivering the best possible support for our fellow Australians living with disability. Friends, better hospitals, stronger Medicare, the NDIS back on track. This is at the heart of Labor vision for the future of a fair go Australia. And friends, I have the Labor team here who's going to deliver it. Let's give them a round of applause. And because we've been up front, because we respect the Australian people and we trust them to put forward our ideas, because in no small part of the economic team led by Chris Bowen and Jim Chalmers and my shadow cabinet, we've made genuine long-term reform decisions. We have a plan to pay for our priorities, to pay for the choices. We're going to make multinationals pay their fair share of tax in Australia. And we are going to end the intergenerational bias in our tax system, reforming the subsidies that advantage property investors over our young first home buyers. And we are going to close the unfair, unsustainable loopholes used by the top end of town. And I have to say this, if you are getting a tax credit when you haven't paid any income tax, this is a gift. It is a gift. It is not immoral, nor is it illegal. But it is a gift. And it is a gift lifted from the taxes paid by working class and middle class people in Australia today. It is a gift that is eating our budget. It's now costing our nation over $6 billion this year, and pretty soon it will cost $8 billion. And if all this talk of billions is too much, perhaps think of it in the following way. 2 minutes worth of the gift, the money that flows out of this one loophole. 2 minutes out of 365 days could pay for someone's knee replacement surgery. 10 minutes worth of the gift is enough to employ a nurse full-time for a year. In 1 hour, this loophole alone could pay for a hospital bed for a whole year. This is the difference that we're talking about. It is a fundamental choice in this election. Better hospitals for all Australians or bigger tax loopholes? Better hospitals or bigger tax loopholes? Friends, if we win the election, we will invest more in our public hospitals, we will invest more in our GPs, we will invest more in preventative health. And it is clear now that if the Liberals win the election, they will cut hospitals again. When the current Prime Minister was Treasurer, he cut $715 million from hospitals. And the new figures reported today reveal that if the Liberals and Nationals win the election, they will cut another $2.8 billion from our public hospitals. After 6 years of cuts to health, the Medicare patient freeze, the cutbacks and the increased out-of-pockets to see the doctor, after 6 years of cuts, they're getting ready to do it all again. And ripping $2.8 billion from our public hospitals. This is the equivalent of sacking 1,900 doctors a year for the next 6 years, or 3,900 nurses, or closing off nearly 700 beds. Think about the difference that this will make. Think about the strains this will put on cuts that these cuts will put on Nepean Hospital or Yass. Think about the damage it will do to the emergency departments at Bateman's Bay and Bankstown. Think about the added pressure and stress and demand that these Liberal national cuts will put on your healthcare workers from Wyong to Lismore. And perhaps most importantly, think about what these cuts will mean for the people who are already living in pain daily, waiting too long to have their knees fixed up, too long to have their hip replaced, or too long to have their cataracts removed. It is true that our country, our precious country, cannot afford to waste another 3 years living under conservative turmoil, conservative division, and conservative infighting. But it is equally just as important to say that our nation cannot afford another 3 years of Liberal national cuts to our precious Australian health system. Now, the good news is that this time, unlike Tony Abbott's cuts to hospitals, unlike the $715 million the current fellow cut from hospitals when he was the Treasurer, this time the decision is in your hands. And that's the message all of you, our mighty volunteers, can carry with you in your conversations with the Australian people. Every one of you can make this message clear, that the one thing that every Australian can do to keep Medicare strong is vote for a Labor government on May the 18th. You can carry this message in conversation with the Australian people, and you can tell them that there is one thing that every Australian can do to get the National Disability Insurance Scheme back on track, It is vote for a Labor government on May the 18th. You can go from here and tell the Australian people that there is one thing that every Australian can do to stop the cuts to our public hospitals. Vote for a Labor government on May the 18th. So friends, that's what we focused on in the first week of this campaign. Medicare, public hospitals, the National Disability Insurance Scheme. But what, by the way, have our opponents spent their week talking about? It's not the country, it's not ideas, it's not a new policy or a plan. They spent their week talking about us. They talk about Labor and they talk about the past because they have nothing good to say about themselves and nothing positive to say about the future of the Australian people. Now, I know that the current Prime Minister keeps trying to say the election is about him and me. But he's just plain wrong, actually. This election is not about two politicians, it's about the people of Australia. Now, I suspect over the next 34 days, we will hear a little more shouty nonsense, perhaps a little bit of trademark truculence from the current fellow. We'll hear more dodgy numbers from the Treasurer and more low-rent personal vilification from the Minister for Home Affairs. Now, we don't want to dwell on his pathetic attempt to bully our great candidate in Dixon, Ailey France. But a negative slur often tells you more about the speaker than the recipient, and I think it says a lot about the modern Liberal Party that rather than apologise straight away, his first instinct was to double down on his attack. And the current Prime Minister's first instinct was to rush in and back him up, to defend the indefensible, rather than just do the right thing. It was a test of character, it was a test of leadership, and the Prime Minister failed miserably. And of course, friends, it won't just be the government attacking us. The vested interests will rage against our reforms, and some sections of the media will back them in. I opened one particular paper last Saturday, you know. It's the one you get for free at the airport. Hypothetically, let's call it The Australian. I saw this headline. Seriously, this was the quote on the headline. Vote Shorten and Bowen for the end of the world. Now, I know in politics that yes, you're not supposed to go around ruling things in or ruling things out. But let me put it beyond any reasonable doubt. I wish to make it clear today that Labor has neither an apocalypse policy nor an Armageddon agenda. I mean, more to the point. It's not that angry, ranting articles are going to decide this election. It's actually the conversations that we have with our fellow Australians. It's the policy work. It's the vision of Australia. It's understanding what's happening in the kitchens and the lounge rooms of Australia that'll matter. But to have these conversations, to outline our fantastic fair go plan for Australians, it's going to be your energy, the people in this room, and of tens of thousands of Labor supporters across this country. That will make the difference. If we are to change the nation, we need to engage with people and change minds. That is the difference. This is the message that I want each and every one of you to take out from here and talk about each and every day for the next 34 days. This election is a choice between better hospitals and better schools, or bigger tax loopholes for the top end of town. It's a choice between getting wages moving again, or 3 more years of wage stagnation and cuts to penalty rates. It's a choice between real action on climate change or 3 more years of infighting and rising power prices. I mean, after all, voting Liberal on climate change when Malcolm Turnbull's no longer the Prime Minister is the triumph of hope over experience. It is a choice between a party that believes in TAFE and apprenticeships or 3 more years of cuts to training. Friends, after 3 Liberal Prime Ministers, 13 energy policies, 22 reshuffles, 6 wasted years of Liberal chaos and division, our united Labor team is ready. And we are deeply conscious that millions of Australians are counting upon us. And I want to say to those millions of Australians who are counting upon Labor to deliver, we will not let you down. I say to the pensioners struggling with their power bills, we will not let you down. To Australians fighting cancer, we will not let you down. To young people who can't find an apprenticeship, we will not let you down. To the farmers battling drought, we will not let you down. To small businesses being squeezed by big businesses, we will not let you down. To women who deserve equal pay and opportunity, we will not let you down. To the Australians living with disability, waiting for the NDIS, we will not let you down. To people stuck on hospital waiting lists, we will not let you down. I cannot promise these people that victory is assured. That will be up to the judgment of our fellow Australians. But I can most certainly promise that my team and I will work as hard as we can every day between now and the election. I can promise that at 6 p.m. on election night, we will have given it everything we have. And if we do that, if everyone in this room, if everyone in our movement who is interested in the progress of this nation, if we all give it everything that we have in the next 34 days, then we will make Australia a better country.